Hello and welcome back to Dawn Chorus Writes a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction and audio fiction. This is the series The Truth Behind the Lies, written by Shika, narrated by Dawn, myself. Hello! And this is part of Shika's Wednesday, and it is back, and I know it's behind, so this is part 9 and 10, so it's a double whammy. So I hope you enjoy. Make sure you send me some love by smashing that like button. Make sure you go and send Shika some love. All her information is down below. Make sure you comment, tell me what you think of it and what will happen next in part 11, and make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on other Shika's Wednesdays, other series that I'm writing, and other one-shots to come, and all the goodies. And enjoy. Part 9. Marinette, look out! Adrien cried, pulling her against him as the stairs beneath him cracked under the strain. The tremors increased and they tumbled down the stairs, each protecting each other's heads as they rolled. They crashed into the metal trash can at the edge of the road, him lying on top of her. He scrambled to his feet, freeing her, when another roar echoed out of the school, but this time the words could be heard through the discord. Where is that cat-loving piece of filth, Dupang Chang? I'll show her what a real cat can do. Adrien and Marinette exchanged wide-eyed looks, the same name on their lips. Chloe. Marinette went pale. I really messed up. I need to... She started to head for the stairs, but he grabbed her arm. No! He yelled over the bedlam. Head home! She's after you! Gay, your parents are going to lockdown. I have to contact Kat. She stared at him, fear storming in her eyes. He expected her to argue, to insist on coming with her to be safe, or even that she would go with him. But instead her expression hardened. Grabbing the collar of his shirt, she pulled him in to press a firm kiss onto his cheek. Stay safe, or I'll never forgive you. Stunned, he nodded, watching her run for the bakery. Come on, kid! Ladybug's gonna need us, Plag called. He ran into the alley behind the school and ducked into an alcove. Plag, claws out! Launching himself to the roof of the school, Kat looked down into the courtyard. Students were screaming and pouring out of the building as large figures stalked around the area, ripping off doors' hinges, searching for its prey. Sliding down his bat onto the floor, he leaned onto it like a cane, twirling his tail. Chloe! 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 We have to stop meeting like this! The figure whirled to his face. Easily twice his height now, Chloe was definitely not a cat. She was more of a lioness, sleek and golden-furred. She prowled as she began to circle him with her long tail, lashing excitedly, and those vibrantly blue eyes a vivid contrast to the elegant tousled mane that swept around her face before joining her signature ponytail. So, the runt of the litter has come to play with the wildcats, she sneered, showing pointed teeth. Just be a good little kitty and show me where Dupang Chang is hiding, and I'll hold off on skinning you. Aw, but I want to have some skin in this game, he said, turning with her so she couldn't get at his back. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't neat to see another cat around town. I'm no ordinary cat. I'm the queen of beasts, she roared, and the ground shook violently beneath him. You're not my queen, Chloe. She is, Kat said, gesturing behind her. Chloe's laugh was even more grating in this form, painful to his more sensitive cat ears. Ridiculous! You think that I'm stupid enough to fall for that? He smirked at her. Bottoms up! Kat watched as a yo-yo wrapped tight around Chloe, jerking her tight and suspending her in the air. Her eyes narrowed at him, and she growled deep in her throat. He couldn't help but grin at how quickly this fight had gone. Ladybug swung down from the roof, staring at the two of them. For one of the Shadow Moth's new Akuma after he's got the Miraculous, I expected this to be harder. Chloe sneered, showing her pointed teeth. You have no idea. She took a deep breath, and the loudest roar imaginable ripped from her throat and through the air, tearing the world as it passed. Cat and Ladybug both slapped hands to their ears, but the sound went on as the ground shook violently beneath their feet, dropping them to their knees. Pieces of the upper floor started crumbling away under the sonic onslaught, and Cat launched over his partner, shielding her from the falling debris. The roar stopped only for a single word to be yelled out in the sudden silence. Clout! The impact of the fist that hit his side was tremendous. With the force of a train, he and Ladybug were launched through several walls and out into the alley he had transformed in. They both lay, sprawling on top of each other, stunned by the blow, but the crunch of the shoes on the rubble brought them dazedly to their feet. Not so tough now, are you? Queen gloated, her laughter echoing off the broken walls around them. Ladybug brushed her nose with her wrist, causing a smear of red that didn't belong to her transformation. Laugh it up, fuzzball, she said with a growl of her own. Cat stared at her in awe. My lady, did you just make a Star Wars pun? Not the time, Cat. He shook himself. Right. He took on a battle stance beside her. I'll make you a deal, Lady Brat, she said confidently, examining the tiger miraculous that wove over her right hand. How had he not seen it before? Tell me where you've hidden Dupang Chang, and I'll let you have a few minutes breather while I deal with that dirty little peasant. Rage burned through him. Cat saw red and launched himself at the akumatized bully. Don't you dare! Queen slapped him out of the air, sending him rolling across the alley. You should dump that runt, Lady Brat. He's been kissing commoners behind your back. Cat had rarely seen the expression that crossed his lady's face, but the few times he had, whoever had caused that would wish they hadn't. Her eyes burned with sapphire rage, barely held in check. Her jaw was clenched tight and her breathing deep, ready to attack. No one, she said softly, her voice intense. No one touches Cat Noir. Faster than he could see, the yo-yo was around the Queen's claws, binding them together, reeling her in like a fish. Ladybug pulled Queen down until they were nose to nose. Do you hear me, Shadow Moth? The purple butterfly appeared over Chloe's face, making Elby lean away abruptly. Then give me your miraculous, and neither one of you will get hurt. It was creepy knowing that their enemy's words were coming out of his childhood friend's mouth. Surrender, Ladybug. You know how this is going to end. I know how it ends if you win, she growled. She was trembling. No one hurts him. Cat walked up and put his hand on her shoulder. It's okay, Elby. I'm fine. Let's get this done, okay? The fire in her eyes cooled somewhat and she nodded. She reached across and pulled Queen's claw apart, stripping the tiger miraculous from her hand and tucked it into his pocket. Queen of Beasts shrunk a little and the fur and the teeth disappeared, but the rest was still real. She screamed in rage, the brick wall behind them shattering into flying fragments. He braced himself against his partner, barely keeping them both standing through the quake. Any chance your lucky charm will be a set of earplugs? He groaned, rubbing his ears when Queen stopped to take a breath. Here, take this. Passing him her yo-yo to keep their adversary bound, she called for a lucky charm. A pair of scissors fell out of the air and into her hands. She looked at the scissors, the bound Akuma, and the space around them. I'm not sure what to do with this. She doesn't have anything on her. Having recovered, Queen cackled. Not so confident now, are you? Why did I even admire you? You're pathetic. She tossed her hair in a characteristic gesture as she drew in a deep breath, ready to roar. But the tossing of her ponytail revealed the one thing that hadn't changed. Her hair tie! Both she and Cat cried at the same time. Hold her! She yelled. He pulled the cord as tight as he could as Queen roared once more. This time Ladybug ignored the painful noise and dove for the other girl. Grabbing her by the ponytail, she pulled it straight back. The lucky scissors snicked, and a dark butterfly flew up as long blonde locks fluttered down. "My hair!" Queen screamed, clutching her head in despair as the butterfly was purified. LB was just about to throw the scissors when Cat grabbed her arm. "A favor, my lady?" She looked at him, confused, still breathing hard. "A picture to remember the day?" She giggled and nodded, letting him snap the picture of Chloe, who was wailing as her hair had been shaved instead of merely bobbed. Ladybug threw the scissors into the air, and all the damage and rubble was restored and cleared by the helpful ladybugs. Chloe's hair returned to its normal state, and she stormed off to check it in the mirror, leaving the two of them standing in the alley. "You okay, Cat?" Ladybug asked, worried, looking him up and down, turning him left and right by the shoulders. "Anything broken?" "Between my suit and your ladybugs, I'm fine and dandy," he said with a grin, spreading his arms wide in approof. "Why the worry?" She blushed darkly and fidgeted with her fingers. "Oh, nothing. It's nothing." Fists on hips, he gave her a skeptical look. "Okay," she said, ducking her head down in embarrassment. "I should have been a better partner and a better friend to you, kitty cat. I know I hurt you, and I would like to make up for it if I can." "You already apologized, LB, and I forgave you," he said gently. "I can't deny I got my feelings hurt, but I'll get over it. Just give me some time, alright? I'm not mad anymore. It just takes me a while to get stuff out of my system." "Yeah, I understand that. I just want you to know that I'm here for you." She looked up at him with worried eyes. "You're all I have, and I'm truly sorry." "We're good, LB, I promise. Cat's honor. You don't need to keep saying you're sorry." He gave her a hug, and he felt her relax against him, rather like Marinette was starting to, with him as Adrien. Marinette. That reminded him. "Though I could use a favor, Bug, if you're willing." "Sure, anything I can do." "It's about Marinette." "Yes?" she said cautiously. "What about her?" "She has been having a hard time at school." He waved after the departed Chloe. "Some girls are making her life miserable, and a few of her friends are trying to help. There's not much I can do for her without revealing your identity and putting her at risk, but that is not what you are asking about." "Well," he rubbed the back of his neck nervously. This was harder than he thought it would be. "I was wondering if you'd ever given her one of your charms." She shook her head. "I only gave them to Akuma victims after we purified them, and they don't work anymore anyway." Cat sighed. "I was just hoping I could do something more for her, that's all. Thanks anyway, LB." He turned, wondering if he had time to pop over to the bakery as Cat to check on Marinette before he had to leave and become Adrien once more, but Ladybug grabbed his arm. "She already has all the luck she needs, Cat Noir. She has you." Her smile was soft and full of gratitude and kindness. He slid her hand into his own, giving it a squeeze. "Thanks, m'lady. That means a lot." He pulled the Tiger Miraculous out of his pocket and handed it to her. "As promised, another victory for the Guardian." "No, another victory for us." His partner sighed with relief and placed it back into her yo-yo. She looked like she was about to say something more when her earrings beeped. She looked torn, but he shooed her with one slight smile. "Don't worry, we'll talk soon. Catch you on patrol?" She nodded and held out her fist. He grinned. "Pound it." The smile she gave him as she whipped away was soft enough to try and melt his heart once more. No. She needed her partner, her friend. His heart couldn't take any more of that right now. And there was Marinette. He sighed, wishing he could give her one of his lady's charms, even if all it did was remind her she had Cat Noir on her side. But I guess it's better if Adrien finds her first, just so that there's no confusion, he thought, releasing his transformation with a muttered phrase. Plague swirled out of the ring, looking pleased. "Another of the Miraculous reclaimed? Good work, kid." "Yeah, but now I have to go and find Marinette." "Hey, just don't forget to feed the Kwame." Adrien rolled his eyes as he flipped his little friend a wedge of cheese. Plag phased happily back into his pocket while Adrien ran for the bakery. Marinette dropped back through the skylight, transforming on her way down. "Here you go, Tiki," she said, handing her a cookie from the jar next to her bed. Rushing over to the thread case where the near-empty miracle box was hidden, she opened it carefully. Raw's symbol was lit. Shedding tears of relief, Marinette pressed the paw mark, and the little tiger whooshing out to cuddle her face while Sass and Kalki twirled around joyfully. "Marinette, you saved me!" she cried, rubbing her head against her cheek and purring violently. She giggled and nuzzled her back. "It's good to see you too, Raw. You must have been starving after all that. Here, have one of Tiki's cookies. I'll make sure to get you some ham this evening, and we'll talk, okay?" "Thanks, Marinette. You're the best." "Marinette!" Adrien's voice echoed up to her from downstairs, sounding worried. "Gotta go, Raw. So glad you're home." She threw open the trapdoor and practically tumbled down the stairs. Adrien caught her at the bottom. "Adrien!" she cried. "I'm so glad you're safe." "I wasn't the one she was after," he said, holding her tight. "I'm sorry. I should have considered that either Chloe or Lila would get akumatized over this, or one of my fans. Maybe we should drop this right now. I won't let you get hurt, Marinette." "Adrien, this isn't your fault. You can't anticipate everything, and if anyone is to blame for all of this, it should be Shadowmoth and Lila, not you. And I was the one who set Chloe off by getting her angry at her. Again, not your fault." "But..." Greatly daring, she put a finger over his lips to stop him, blushing furiously. Whatever he was going to say faded away as he looked at her, his cheeks pink as well. "No buts. Today was my fault. I just get riled up when anyone hurts people I care about." The smile that spread behind the finger was soft and genuine, and it made her heart do somersaults. "I care about you too, Marinette, and so does Cat." She smiled despite the ache in her chest. "I know." Adrien leaned in just a little and wiggled his eyebrows at her, reminding her forcefully of Cat. "So, are you ready to model for your own tophographs?" Her jaw popped open in embarrassed astonishment. "Adrien!" she whined, hiding her face behind her hands. He chuckled and shook her shoulders slightly. "You're just so easy to tease, Marinette." "But why?" she wailed. He gently pulled her hands away from her face, which she was sure she was blushing from collar to crown. He brushed her burning cheeks with his thumb. "'Cause you're cute when you blush. Now come on. Father has given me the afternoon off to clear things with your parents and get them to sign the paperwork for you to model with me. It is going to take a lot of work to get all this done by Saturday, but Father wants you, and so do I." His smile could have lit up the whole city, and determined look in his eyes made her heart race. "And when an aggress wants something, we'll move heaven and earth to get it." He took her hand and pulled her towards the kitchen table, completely unaware of the chaos he had created in her heart. For it was then Marinette realized the flaw in this plan, something that could bring this thing crashing down around their ears. Adrien hadn't planned on her falling deeper in love with him. Part 10. It took a lot of meetings, fitting, palette tests, and a mountain of paperwork, but it had been worth it. Saturday had dawned perfectly, as if it had been made to order, but given that it was for Gabriel's shoot, it probably had been. Adrien had greeted Marinette when she arrived, face pale and smile tense, and escorted her to the house where she was greeted quite cordially by his father and her own style team. They whisked her away to the piano parlor that had been set aside as her dressing room. Now all he had to do was wait. And wait. And wait some more. Waiting was not something he was good at. Every tick of the clock made him more nervous. He wished he could get up and pace, but knew he would only work himself into a lather that would ruin his makeup. "How long could it possibly take for a girl to put on a dress?" he muttered, shoving his hands into his trousers pockets to keep himself from running them through his hair. "Relax, kid. Pigtails is fine. Girls' hair and clothes are always more complicated, right? Right? Besides, knowing her, she's probably peppering them with questions, Plagg replied, tucking himself into the breast pocket of his suit coat. Then he snorted. Or has fainted at least once. It's 50-50 chance, really. Not helping, Plagg, he murmured tensely. So, what's really bothering you, aside from the suit? Adrien looked down at the suit jacket his father had designed for the men's line. It was a dark blue-green that shifted to a blue-purple as he moved, similar to a peacock's plumage, with a narrow lapel and deep cuffs, both embroidered with silver butterflies. It was closely fitted around the waist but flared out past his hips, almost like a skirt. Overall, it looked either like he had stepped out of a high-budget period drama or he was walking advertisement for Shadow Moth. He tried to push that particular image aside. The very thought made him feel queasy. It's just, this whole thing was my idea. What if it goes south on us? On her? What if father goes into one of his tantrums over this and freaks her out? Marinette could be akumatized because of my dumb idea. The Kwame darted out of his pocket and popped him smartly on the nose. Ow, that hurts, Plagg. Good. Maybe a little pain will filter through that pity party you're hosting in your head there. This is pigtails you're talking about. Your everyday ladybug, right? She can do anything. You said so yourself. He sighed loudly. You're right. Marinette is trusting me with my side of things, and I need to trust her to do hers. A knock sounded at his door. Adrien, someone called from the other side. We are starting shooting in 5 minutes. Thanks. Giving himself one last look in the mirror, Adrien straightened his jacket and went downstairs. The Gabriel Spring formal photo shoot was always held in the Egress Gardens. It was the perfect setting with the flowers and the trees in full bloom, giving a soft romantic quality to the pictures. His mother had loved tending the flowers and the plants, but the garden was too large for a single person to take care of properly. Even before his mother had gotten sick, Adrien could remember a small army of gardeners who worked around the grounds, leaving the greenhouse to Madame. Ever since she died, Adrien had done what he could in there, but his limited knowledge and the time made it difficult, and it was now a wild blower behind the glass walls. Perhaps it was its very wildness, but it was the one safe place he knew, and the place with his fondest memories, and the only spot on his father's property where he felt at home. Maybe one day he could take Marinette there and share it with her. She would understand. But for today, it was being used as one of the backdrops for the photo shoot. The sun was heading towards its golden hour, the perfect time for giving a romantic feeling to the photos. The light glittered off the greenhouse like diamonds amongst the flowers, as assistants ran here and there, interrupting the tranquility of the scene in their hurry. "Looking good there, Adrien," called the director, a man he had worked with before named Pierre. "Just check on your partner. She's new, isn't she?" Adrien couldn't keep the smile from his face. "Yeah, her name's Marinette. She's my friend. We go to school together." Pierre raised an eyebrow at him, a knowing smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I see." Oh, he hoped the man couldn't hear Plague's smothering a snicker inside his suit jacket. It was too much to hope he hadn't seen the blush. "Well, she's a keeper. She'll be out in a moment, but I wanted to run through an idea with you. You know those first impression shots? You've never done one, I know, but if the two of you have a decent rapport, it might be worth trying. Want to give it a go?" He shrugged. "Might as well. Marinette and I seem to have a natural chemistry. That's why I suggested to my father that she do this shoot with me. You might not get exactly what you want, though. Marinette and I have been good friends for 2 years. I know she's interested in someone, but it's worth a try." The knowing smile widened. "I think you'll be pleasantly surprised." He motioned for the photographer to come over to position the shot. "Okay, I want you to stand here, staring at the white rose in front of the greenhouse. Marinette will come up behind you, you'll turn and see her for the first time. I want your real reaction, right? Don't hold back. I want lots of emotions, and we'll go from there. Got it? Yeah, sure thing. But what if I don't have the reaction you're looking for? Trust me, you will, Pierre said, looking like someone on a private joke. The photographer positioned him in front of the greenhouse, and an assistant gave him a white rose. At least it was a real one, even if the thorns had been removed. He brought it to his nose and sniffed its delicate fragrance. White roses were for pure love, humility, and admiration. Totally appropriate for the theme of first love, and thinking about it kept him distracted from how fast his heart was beating and how his dry throat kept swallowing convulsively. Okay, stop there, Marinette, a voice called. Go ahead and call him. Adrien? She said softly, taking a deep breath. He turned. The sound of the cameras going off and a host of happy sighs from assembled crowd was lost in the white noise that filled his ears at the sight of her. The deep blush burning across her cheeks and her ears was a familiar sight to him, but the Marinette he stood before him was as far from his everyday Marinette as could imagined. Adrien swallowed hard. The gown his father had designed looked like it could only ever be worn by her. An angled bodice in deep blue grey, brushed with gold, was bound tight at the waist, and wide band and flared out of ombre of blue to white, overlaid with nearly transparent chiffon, sparkling here and there with what looked like brushstrokes of liquid gold. Her midnight hair cascaded over her bare shoulders like a curtain of shadows, pulled away from her face to reveal her deep blue eyes that popped with a blue smoky eye effect that shimmered gold when she blinked. He felt himself walk towards her, almost as if he was a passenger in his own body. His mind absently took in the sapphire shine of her hair, her deep red lips, the smoky eyes, the blue shot through with the gold, but all he saw was the way she peered up at him shyly through her lashes and teased her bottom lip between her teeth nervously. It made him feel like the Grinch from Dr. Seuss, with his heart growing 3 sizes in rapid succession. He couldn't breathe. She was beautiful. You look... He rasped, unable to finish as the words got lost in those ocean eyes. She broke eye contact and looked down away. Fine, fellas, she stammered. He stroked a curl of hair behind her ear, lifting her chin so that she was forced to look at him. No, that dress, as lovely as it is just fabric without you. You are what makes it shine, Marinette. He took her hand, stepped back and bowed low over it, pressing a kiss to just the barest tips of her fingers. There was a loud "Aww" from the assembly as they finally broke the trance they had fallen into. Good job, you two, Pierre called, shooting Adrien "I told you so" grin. I want some same direction shots. Adrien, help Marinette get into position, please. Adrien, I'm not sure I can do this, she stammered, her eyes wide under the makeup. You're my everyday ladybug. You can do anything, Marinette, he soothed. Just ignore the cameras and the people and focus on me, okay? I know you remember dancing in New York. Her blush deepened and he chuckled. Just pretend we are doing that again. Just you and me. I won't let you fall. She nodded tentatively and he slowly moved behind her. Taking her hand in his own, he wrapped his arm around her waist, turning to show off the embroidery on his cuffs and the sweep of her gown. She trembled slightly and he pulled her ever so tightly closer, in a hug within a hug. Now, look over there, towards the maple tree, he murmured into her ear, pointing his chin slightly. Slowly, relax your shoulders and inhale with me. The photographer clicked away madly, exclaiming to the director about their energy. Just do what comes naturally, you two, Pierre shouted over the man's excited mutterings. Adrien felt Marinette stiffen once more. Don't worry, I've got this. Pressing one hand flat against her waist, he took her hand into his and brought it to his face. Now, Look up at me," he murmured against her wrist. She turned, her blue eyes locked onto his, and he was sure she could hear his heart beating out a samba in his chest. He then placed a hand on his cheek, leaned into a touch. He felt her breath catch in his chest, and she trembled once more in his arms. Glancing up, he saw his father watching them with a calculating stare that could prime someone to be kumatized by itself. "Father may be intimidating, but no one is gonna scare my princess," he thought. Leaving a hand on his cheek, he leaned over and whispered in her ear, "Don't worry about Mr. Candy Cane. His glare only goes up to 11. She gave a delicate little gasp, raising one hand to cover her mouth as she shot him an amused look. Lips spreading into a grin, he twitched sides to whisper into the other ear, "Don't forget, old Stuff Shirts puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like the rest of us." "Adrien!" she hissed, unable to hide the smile or dancing eyes. "Stop it, or I won't be able to keep a straight face." "Why bother?" he replied, leaning back, spinning her around as if they were really dancing. "The theme is first love, not funeral, and even if it was, I'm dressed like a peacock to your fairy princess. We can't get any weirder than that. Besides, being all stiff and serious will turn us into statues or something." She giggled, and a sudden naughty look glittered in her eyes. Standing to one side of him, she stood on tippy toes, cupped one hand behind his ear as if telling him a secret. Then she leaned in, her breath tickling his ears and neck, and both of which flushed at the contact, and whispered, or worse, "Candy canes and pants." Adrien fought to keep his own laughter inside, but his grin filled his whole face. The rest of the shoot was a blur around them as he and Marinette kept up the delicate dance around each other, interspersed with whispering jokes. After a while, the jokes fell away, and he completely forgot about the cameras and the production staff. All he saw was Marinette. They stood in an avenue lined with weeping cherry trees in full bloom, as the last golden light of the day filtered through the branches, picking out metallic threads on her skirt, gold to his silver. She was leaning back against a trunk, her eyes cast down and her hands tucked behind hers. The sunbeam caught her in a golden radiance and took his breath away. He stepped close to her, hands at her waist to draw her to him. "Marinette," he whispered, his nose brushing hers ever so slightly. "Adrien?" His name was nothing but a warm whisper against his lips. Her eyes shone like stars as she looked up at him, her hands creeping up to grasp his lapels as roses bloomed across her face. "Would you? May I?" His head was swimming. She was soft and sweet within the circle of his arms, filling the ever-present void of loneliness and self-doubt to overflowing. In that moment, she was his lodestone, drawing him ever closer, trapping in the gravity well of her gaze. His eyes closed as he leaned in. "And that's a wrap, people. We're losing light anyway," Pierre called, clapping his hands together loudly, shattering the moment like glass. "Excellent work, you two." Marinette jumped away from him, eyes wide, face red, and panting slightly. She gave him that tense smile once more, and he felt his heart sink. "How about we grab a drink? She dabbled nervously, her hands waving furiously at the flushed face. "I'll go and get some water. Sound good?" Before he could answer, she was sprinting away as fast as her heels could let her. Marinette fled. She fled from the romantic setting, from her feelings, and from the surprise hurt in Adrien's eyes, from the tears that burned in her own. "Stupid, stupid, stupid!" She berated herself, her heart pounding painfully in her chest, her jaw clenched shut to fight the aching in her lips. Lips Adrien had pretended to kiss. She had known this was a bad idea from the start. She ducked into the craft service tent and grabbed a bottle of water before collapsing on a folded chair. 2 interns were there helping gathering everything up. "You did amazing, Marinette," one of them said, a pretty girl in her early 20s with curly red hair. "Mr. Egress made a good choice when he picked you for this campaign." "He sure did," said her friend with a knowing smirk. I've never seen Adrien so into a shoot before. One might even say he looked smitten. Marinette's face went red. Thanks, but Adrian's just a really good model. He already has a girl he's in love with. She laughed weakly. I have to be as lucky as Ladybug for him to fall in love with me. We're just good friends. The words hurt, but she said them in a way as an anchor to her reality. She knew she wasn't that lucky, even with Tiki on her side. Could have fooled me. Come on, Maya. We need to get these things back into the van. Be there in a minute, the red-haired replied, staring long at Marinette. When her friends left the tent, she knelt next to the chair and put a comforting hand on her shoulder. It's hard, isn't it? Working so hard to be his friend when you love him so much. Marinette's eyes opened wide. How did you know? Maya gave her a sympathetic smile and handed her a spare napkin. The blush. The pain in your eyes. Are you going to be okay? She bolted her eyes carefully. I don't have much of a choice, do I? There's always a choice, Marinette. It's just we're so close today and some of the poses. How could she tell a stranger, no matter how kind, how Adrien had stolen her breath and made her tingle and blush all over, how her heart raced like an engine in her chest and all she wanted to do was curl up in his arms and never leave. How she ached now as if her heart pain was bleeding into the rest of her. Marinette! Adrien's gentle voice floated to her from the tent flap. Are you okay? He hurried to her side, worry plain in his emerald eyes. Hastily, she opened the bottle of water and took a large mouthful to give her a moment to compose herself. She's just a bit overwhelmed, Adrien, Maya said, rubbing her gently on the back. First time modelling and all. You were amazing, Marinette, he murmured, with a smile so soft and understanding that her heart felt squeezed. Aside from those first few minutes where you were so nervous, I would have thought that you would have been doing this for years. Vincent, the photographer, is over the moon with our chemistry. Even Father is pleased, and that never happens. His smile turned into a grin. And I've never had more fun at a photo shoot. Will you be okay with Adrien? She swallowed and nodded. Maya rose and gave her shoulder a final squeeze. Don't worry, Marinette. Maybe you're luckier than you think. She gave her a subtle wink before grabbing an armful of boxes and left the tent. It can be a bit much, can't it? She looked down at him, bottling up the emotions deep inside her chest along with her tears. Yeah, she whispered, wiping her eyes with a napkin. I don't know how you do this all the time, especially when you don't like it. I couldn't have made it through this without you. He shrugged. I do it to make my father happy. It's what he wants, and... His words petered out, and he looked away, not meeting her eyes. Swallowing down her own heartache, she gently turned his face back. But what is it you want, Adrien? He tried to put on one of his false smiles, bright and cheerful and picture-perfect, but when he met her eyes once more, she just looked at him until it cracked. He sighed, his hand reaching for hers and squeezed it tight. I want the little things, Marinette. I want to just be a teenager. I want to eat pizza and go swimming in the pool with my friends. I want to go to the sleepover at Nino's and have a real birthday party. I want to have breakfast with my father more than 3 or 4 times a year and have him be interested in things I enjoy, to ask about how I'm doing. I want to be loved so much of my life. I want to be loved. But so much of my life is big and showy and fake. I'm fake. I hide behind a perfect smile and say I'm okay, but I'm not. You're the only one who really sees me, but sometimes I think you're the only one who wants me to be me. Lila may be a liar, but I'm living a lie. Who could love someone like that? Marinette's heart broke for him. Despite wearing the finest gown she had ever seen in her life, she slid off her chair and onto her knees into the grass beside him, wrapping him tightly into her arms. She had known Adrien was lonely and hurting, and had been for so long of a time, but she didn't realize how much until this moment. He clung to her, weeping silent tears into her shoulder. You're not a lie, she said softly, running her fingers through his hair, knowing that if she was ever going to speak what was in her heart, it had to be now. You're my sunshine, and kindness, and forgiveness, and one of the most wonderful people I know. I didn't deserve it when you forgave me for how I treated you on that first day we met, and how you were so patient with me. You listen when I babble, and I would have frozen out there today if it wasn't for you. I'm sorry for how your father treats you, and the girl who turned you down is an idiot for not seeing how sweet and kind and funny and wonderful you are. The gift, the part of you that is only you, is beautiful, and I'm so glad that you feel that you can share it with me. I know I'm just a mess most of the time and terribly clumsy, but for whatever it's worth, I love you, Adrien, more than you will ever know. He leaned out of her embrace just far enough to see her eyes and gave her the watery but genuine smile. You are so much more than that. I love you too, Marinette. He pulled her back into a hug. I think you are the best friend I've ever had. Thank you so much for just being you. And though his words were a killing blow, she smiled and hugged him back. She had confessed and he had misunderstood, but she wasn't going to make this moment about her. Marinette would be his friend, and the best friend she could be for him, to help him find and become what he truly wanted. Even if she could never find the words again. Even if the midnight of a Cinderella moment was creeping up on her like a doomsday clock. Even if her heart broke over him 1,000 times. Let it shatter. Let it crumble to dust. Adrien was worth the sacrifice. Thank you for listening to part 9 and 10 of Truth Behind the Lies. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, I can't believe he said those words. Anyway, go and send me some love by smashing that like button. Comment down below what you think of it. If you don't know what to say just good best friends. Make sure you send Shika some love for writing it. And make sure you subscribe so you do not miss out on other series and parts to come. And thank you so much for hitting 3,000 subscribers. It means the world to me. I can't believe it. I literally cannot believe it. So thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? Press that button right now. And I hope you're good, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.